Day everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel once again. The last time we were here, we came up with the best students in the College of Social and Management Sciences of Tacsfon University of Education, and we spoke at length at so many things. And one thing I came to realize then was that this is someone who was able to learn from the experiences of people that have gone ahead of him. My name is Odejobi Anna Odunayo, and today we'll be discussing something relating to listening or learning from the experiences of those that have gone ahead of us. I will tag this the dilemma of this new school cliche. Like most times these days we look at the people that have gone ahead of us as old school. We call them old school. We look at them as people that are inexperienced. They don't know what the new world is about. They don't know what we the new school are going through. So today I'll be discussing with two other people here, and we'll be discussing together this new school cliche of a thing and what we think about the experiences of these old school people. After the short break, we'll be having our guest here with us, and we'll be right back. I said earlier before we left that we'll be having two guests with us to discuss. I'm very sure you remember I said we'll be discussing something about learning from the experiences of those that have gone ahead of us, and I'll be tagging that the dilemma of the new school. So today I have here with me.
My name is Adepoju Joshua.
My name is Akimboye de Susan Folashade.
Okay, do you know what's so exciting about these two people here? Don't worry, I'll tell you after now. Before the end of the show, I'll be telling you what's so special about the both of them. So, like I said earlier, we'll be discussing the dilemma of the new school. That is, the learning from the experiences. Majorly, what I want us to talk about is learning from the experiences of those that have gone ahead of us. If we are to look at our world today, if we are to look around us today, we would notice that many of us, that is, we youths, we are kind of quick to call the older people, that's the older generation, old school. That is when they are trying to advise us on some certain things. Because I've been in different situations in the time past where maybe I'm being advised on taking a particular, probably going a particular way, but because I feel like no, that's just old school. It is not, like, people don't do that again. It is too old school, and I feel like no, let me have it the way it is being done now. But at the end of the day, I find out that no, it shouldn't have been that way. So I just want to know what you feel about that. Like, have you ever had such experiences where you feel like maybe these people are old school? Maybe you were given an advice from an elderly person and you feel like no, this is too old school.
Okay, thank you very much for having me around. And before I actually proceed, there is a particular adage in Yoruba I would love to quickly make use of this moment, which is I will interpret in English also, which is nǹkan tí àgbàlagbà bá rí lórí ìjókòó bọ́mọdé bá gungi ọ̀pẹ kò lè rí. What does it mean? That experience is it is the best teacher. What an elderly man or elderly woman sees while sitting down, what happens? A young child cannot even give details of what it means. So let me quickly talk about maybe a little experience of what it means following old school. Though it might look like old school, but experience is the best teacher. I remember those days when I was in secondary school, and I used to have a teacher. In fact, if I his name is Pastor Paul Onolowo. So he's this kind of person that he teach principle. I was like, why is this man so hard on us? So something happened a day, and I got to school very early. So they asked my classmates to bring the pass outside, and I was not in class when that information was passed. But later on, I joined the class, and the teacher was like, so the teacher that asked them to bring the pass outside was like, why you guys why haven't you guys bring the past outside? So me, I met the punishment part, I did not meet the, so I was just trying to explain myself, and
You
you
did not
understand
meet
the
the
way.
instruction part.
So I met the instruction.
You did not meet the instruction
Okay, I did not
part.
miss the instruction part.
You only met the punishment
I
part.
met the punishment part. And this person that was in charge of it was like, you have to, I was like, I was trying to explain. He said, shut up. I was like, Jesus, I was not part of this. So, but after one, I was like, what happened? And later, after the punishment, though I was spanked, but later when I went to meet the man, I said, why? I explained myself. He said, I know, Joshua, you are right, truly, but you must learn to accept the fact when that he said, I want the best for you, because if I leave you the other time, you will have problem with these other teachers you are seeing, because they will start seeing you as somebody that is rude, that is proud, and that cannot be corrected. So that is, though it looked like a punishment, but since then in fact I've kept to that and I've stick to that sometimes experience from these people, it goes a long way.
I've had that kind of experience some time ago before, where maybe I think then I got into a fight with my elder sister, and I was still the one that was blamed for it. Like, I was punished for it. And then if we are to look at it and bring it down to our own recent words now, we would see that parents, like these younger parents, they don't train their children the same way. Although if we are to look at it, there are young people also, that don't raise their children that way. Like, they don't use this archaic way of raising children, but then their children turn out well. And there are some other people that, in fact, the way they raise these children, will feel like, me, I was not raised this way. Why will you raise a child this way? Why will you think like, then we used to feel like freedom of speech, but as at then, we never had freedom of speech. The only freedom we had was to obey our parents, because even the Bible said, children, obey the instruction of your father, honor the, I don't know how to express it, but I feel like maybe you'll be able to express it more. What do you feel about this new generation parents feeling like their children have a freedom of speech, and they can express themselves, express their own views?
Okay. Before I go to that question, I would like to still take it from where we started from, and that is this dilemma of new school, old school. Like my brother here said an adage the other time. I would also like to make reference to an adage. Yoruba, it says, "Tọmọdé bá láṣọ bí àgbà, kò lè lákìísà bí àgbà." Most of the time, all these little things that we children, we say, no, you are old school, you are this, you are that. It actually starts from little stuff that we don't take note of. Let's take for example now, my mom. She's this kind of person that she does not. Okay, let's say we're in the kitchen, we're cooking. In fact, in short, my mommy hates anything called dirtiness, or so. Like, if let's say we're cooking in the kitchen and the likes, she will always say, once you use one spoon, you wash it. And I'm like, what's doing this woman? All these old people, that will be like, maybe we can't.
Exactly.
But while we are growing up, I realized that it is actually the best way, because when you I use this, I drop it, I use this, I drop it, you realize that by the time you come back, or you say you want to wash it, everything is piled up. So that is just the way it is when it comes to new school, old school. Most of the time when we later come back to our senses, let me put it that way, we realize that their advice is the best. And this issue of parents of children, our generation parents, and you said something the other time, that freedom of speech. Recently I was talking with someone, and the person said, okay, fine, there is freedom of expression, but after the expression, can you face the consequences of your expression? It is actually very good when we express ourselves, but the thing is, after saying what we say, so sometimes like that, when our parents are like maybe correcting us, or maybe too harsh on us sometimes, they're actually saving us of some things, and we don't know. Now, parents of nowadays, it still goes down to not taking the experiences of them, because if we notice now, the children that are raised by our generation are, I don't want to call them problems because when we look at it, they are their turnout is not very very okay, like our own generation. So it still goes down to some parents that refuse to take the experiences or the advice of the so-called old school. So when they want to raise the generation now, we are now having issues with the generations they are raising now, because even this our own generation now, we have parents that I think there is a friend of mine that she okay, she got pregnant for the person she was in a relationship, and the blah blah blah. So, and the baby was a girl, and she will boldly say, if this my baby grows up, I will boldly tell this my child that your father has not married me, but I was the one that told him to disvirgin me, stuff like that. Sure, you understand? So like those kinds of things, like how are we planning to raise this next generation if we continue to call them old school, old school, old school? The thing is, we will lose it.
Seriously. Okay. From there, I think I remember something now. When we were younger, I could remember when I was, let me put it personally, when I was younger, if I should sit, we have a mortar and pestle for pounding yam. This mortar and pestle, it is always placed face down. If I sit on it, my mom will say, "Ha, má jókòó sórí ẹ̀ mọ́. Ẹni tó bá jókòó sórí ẹ̀, ìyá ẹ̀ máa kú," like things like that. What that means is that if you should sit on the mortar, that the mother of the person that is sitting on the mortar will die. There are some other myths like that, but later when I grew up, I later got to realize that these are just little things to put us in order. Like it is more like placing a caution on us, like whistling. Now they will say if you whistle, snakes and different wild animals will appear at you and things, stuffs like that. But when I growing up, I realized that they were just myths that will help us, that will shape us, and exactly it shaped us into who we are now. But if we are look at it now, these younger parents, they don't raise the children that way anymore. Like they just tell them straight, is either you don't sit on it, or they just leave them to do it because they know there is no consequences to those things. Like there is no consequences to it. Now, is it that I don't know if you get that line, because these parents, they are how do I put it now, like they just kind of pamper. I don't know if you get the line, but now, will this have an effect on this coming generation? Like this, we were lied to then. Let me just say, we were lied to. And there are even some other ones, they will say that if you touch a boy, that you get pregnant. But now, this younger generation, they don't tell them those things. So does it mean that these things will have an impact on the coming generation? Does it mean that we'll be having more of pregnant young adults, like more of pregnant teenagers? Does it mean that we'll be having more of spoiled children? All right.
Okay, let me come in from there. In fact, my sister have said a lot about this upcoming generation. From the last part, I remember a few weeks ago I was actually studying a particular book on what effective parenting, which is by Tope and Bumi Uni. So we are now talking. So when I was studying, I realized that though we have changed the way, because we are in a modernized world, we have the X and Y generation. So, and we have changed. There's something that has changed about the world, that you don't just use a vector power on children, but that does not make you not to what to correct them and not even the Bible says when you spare the rod,
you spoil the child.
You spoil the child.
But do you know that they use those veto power on us then?
The reason why they use those veto power on us is because they believe it is by authority. But now things can be better done by love. And this you mentioned something the other time. About if you touch a boy, you get pregnant. If you touch a girl, you are in trouble. I was talking to a particular brother last week. There was a week back, and the brother said, The first time was in GSS class, and the class teacher changed him and put a lady beside him. He started crying. He started crying to the extent that he cried and went home.
I can imagine.
The teacher was
Seriously?
like, why are you crying? He said, why will a girl sit down beside me?
I don't want to.
So there is something that has been passed to him, that one of the things that in the olden days they don't give us information. They just give us instruction. But nowadays,
And they did not born us well.
they did not born us well. I used to hear about a story of a particular person, is that they said this girl, they used to tell her mother used to say, don't let boys to see your pint, don't let the boys to see your pint. So one day, she's the only one that can climb a tree, and the ball hang on the tree. So when it's got time to go and pick it up, so she has to pull up her pint and go somewhere, and she climb the tree. One of the things is that instead of telling her that it's not about your pants, it's about your what? Your private part. It's about your what? Your well-being, how to compose yourself, how to do things. So in this generation, we don't just have to use veto power, but we have to use the God, but also what? Learn to what? Give them information. That is why even in nowadays in secondary schools, there's one thing we now call what? Having this communal relationship with children. Tell them, parental guide, that you have to guide them, have this kind of relationship with them. Don't just tell them, don't touch this thing. Tell them that this is the consequence of doing this, and that is how we can balance the both.
All right. After this short break, we'll continue, because I think this discussion is getting wider.
Yes,
so maybe after this short break, we'll continue. Thank you for watching. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. In fact, the way this conversation is going, I think it will be opening more room for other conversations, because before we went the other time, we were saying something about parents using veto power on children. That was in the olden days. In fact, if you should bring that these days, in some countries they just dial 911. And you see, in fact, it is really a very large conversation. But then I don't know if you have something to say, because I have a whole lot to say about that veto power person. But let me just give you the justice to make.
Okay. Actually, now you are sounding like new school.
Oh.
You just said that was in the olden days.
No.
Of a truth, sincerely speaking, our parents, we can say they were too rigid. Instead of like you said the other time, instead of opening, like telling children, okay, don't do this because of this. Like, for example, that mother and person that you mentioned now,
Yes.
it is actually not because your mother will die. It is like for what's it called now? Hygiene.
Hygiene.
Yeah, it is because of hygiene. And even fingernails. Our parents will tell us, don't. And the thing is, if you can keep nails, like your nails should not be dirty even if it is long. I guess that is what they should have mentioned. So now but what I will still have to say, not like I'm defending them, but I will still say that they trained us in the best way they could. That is the way I see it, because like if we look at it, in fact, the kind of training they went through, I mean, when they were growing up, was even more rigid than what we went through, like than how they trained us. Now, when we grew up and we understand some things, we now said, oh, they should have at least explained this thing. And sincerely speaking, to some extent, some of their rigidness, in fact, affected us to some extent. Because somehow, sometimes we'll be like, let me say our generation, when you say don't enter this room, maybe a wild animal is there that can harm me. But in fact, I might not even have the mind or the maybe I might not even want to enter that room. But the fact that you said don't enter that room, you want to make me enter. Like we are inquisitive. Let me just put it that way. Now look at the generation that we are breeding now. In fact, they are more inquisitive. They want to. So that is why we have learned a lot from their generation. I mean, how they trained us. We realize that there are some mistakes. If we say mistakes in raising us, I will not say they didn't try their best. They did their best in the best way they could. But instead of tagging them old school, or instead of seeing it as the way they trained us is not good, then exposing children to what they should not be exposed to, because most children of nowadays are really too exposed. I mean, too exposed to like their age. You know, when you hear some kids say something, you should be like, ha. But when I was in this boys, I be this hair girls age, I don't even know what this is called. So, and we notice that children of nowadays, like, in fact, if you don't tell them, they know.
Yeah.
They know.
Computer.
Like, we're in the computer age. And there is one thing about now, if you don't tell them, like, if you don't tell them in the house, when they go out, they will tell them the wrong way. So I feel instead of tagging them, okay, old school, we should just learn from them. It is still their experiences that we will take. We should just learn from them, and even their so-called mistakes, and then we can improve on raising our own children, not totally condemning their way or their line of doing things.
All right. Okay. You know, there is something I have come to realize even while we were talking, that the way our parents raised us, it is from the experiences they have gathered from their own upbringing. So they used it in shaping us, and that's what raised us into who we are today. But then, if you have to look at it, our own generation now has refused to use that upbringing, that same experience, in raising the next generation. So, not to bore us too much with long talks and the likes, because I believe we all understand the context of this argument or discussion. This is not an argument, it's a discussion. So, will you please give us like a summary of what you just think about this discussion?
Okay, like, what's the topic that we have been deliberating on for just the few past minutes we have used, is that we are trying to compare and construct the words, the old school and the new school. Yeah. Nevertheless, he said, even the scripture said, do not forsake the words instruction of your father.
Yeah.
You get why? Seriously, there's a reason for it. So, nevertheless, while applying the new school, please, you also need experience. Because this experience goes a long way. Experience goes a long way. And these people and this experience, don't let us just laugh at this experience. But let us make use of it for to reframe things and to reform things. So, one word I'll just leave to us is that experience is the best teacher. Experience it. So it's better that it does not happen to you than what that is for me. I've been told before. So it's better you should just listen, give heed. He said, the book of that Proverbs chapter 9 verse 9 was talking about. He said, give an instruction to a wise man, and what does he do? He increases in learning. So one of the things you should, though they are not even giving us the enough information we need, but nevertheless, give instance to give ear to those instructions first, and you later find out the information behind it, which can reform us, that can help us. So that have created a balance between what the old school and the new school. Make use of the experience for this new era.
Amen. I hope you have something to say. Okay.
I will just pick it up from what he said. He said talked about not learning from your own experience. So it is actually very much better that we learn from other people's experiences than learning from our own mistakes. One thing I will just say is this whole issue of old school, new school is not just now. In fact, I would say it started from the Bible. Let's look at Dinah, for example. You know, the Bible says, and Dinah went out to see. So I'm sure the father or the mother or somebody somewhere anyhow would have instructed her that, okay, this land is not, it's not our land. It is not children of God that stays here. So don't go out, don't mingle with them. And somehow she felt, at least I want to have fun, Jare. They are overprotective. God bless you. and she went out, and we all know what happened to her. So I will just say that these people, as we call them, old school, of a truth they might be old people, but their experiences are not old school. In fact, it is forever relevant. Like I said the other time, tọmọdé bá láṣọ bí àgbà kò lè lákìsà bí àgbà, and Yorùbás will say àkísà ni bàbá aṣọ. That means experience is the best teacher. Experience is just the best teacher. So and if we call our own children, our own parents now old school, and we say we are new school, I can imagine what our own children will call us.
Old school
In
proverbs.
fact, oh exactly.
Exactly.
Max. So that's just what I have to say.
All right, thank you very much, our speakers and our guests, for joining us today. Just before we round up, I have something short to say. You know, yesterday, or a few days ago, I was watching a video online, and I saw it is a kind of trend where people will say, "This is the child I took to grandma's place," and this is the child I gave. And I saw one child that he had punk. He had a punk kind of hair, and he was dressed very beautifully. He was dressed very fine. And then when they showed the grandma version of the baby, it was, in fact, the grandma had to cut off all of the hair.
No.
Although so that's just that's just a takeaway for all of us. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was really great having you around. It was great having you watch us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share massively. We'll see you some other time. Thank you.